This is a day of new beginnings. Our God is making all things new. Our God is making all things new. Happy Easter, St. Anne Parish, and welcome to this week's Quick Things. A better greeting in these Easter days would be, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. That was a common exchange among Christians at one time, not so much in the early church, because they may not have known necessarily as they encountered people who was a Christian and who wasn't, although if they did encounter someone of their community or who they knew was a follower of Jesus, one of them might say, Christ is risen, and the other would respond, he is risen indeed. But in certain cultures, this Paschal greeting was very common in these days after Easter as people embrace the celebration of Christ's resurrection. It almost seems, because it is so crucial, it is all that we are about as Christians, the celebration of the resurrection, being resurrection people. For some of us, it's such a letdown to just go back to a routine after our celebration of Triduum and the great resurrection. And so I think that was part of a strategy among those Christians, was to try to hang on to some of that greeting. Just as in our culture, we say Merry Christmas for weeks and weeks before Christmas. Well, far more we would want to do that after. But at Easter, especially, that we might maintain some of that greeting. So if you see someone in the store, a fellow parishioner or someone you know who is a follower of Jesus, I guess you could do it with a stranger too. You might say, Christ is risen. And maybe they would respond, especially if if they know our routine here and in other parishes, they might say, he is risen indeed. A way for us to maintain that enthusiasm of Easter and to celebrate what these days are really about, which is that Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. I mentioned in my homily on Sunday that I would be having dinner with my friend Mike Jonkus and some other folks on Easter Sunday night. And one of the things we do at this dinner every year is talk about our celebrations of Triduum. So most of us are pastors or people who work in parish ministry. And so we have the funniest thing that happened and the most emotional thing that happened. And also, what was the highlight? What was the best part of Triduum? Well, for me, there was no question. It was hands down our 10:30 celebration outside. We had 530 people gathered on Sunday morning, and many of you were there. So there were 530, so many of you were among them. The people just kept coming. And our logistics weren't quite ready for that, but we adapted and worked it out. So what a great celebration it was of the resurrection, a beautiful setting. I mean, you don't get better than a beautiful Easter Sunday morning. And so it was a great privilege and just a lot of fun to come and celebrate Easter with folks who were gathered there that morning. There's a video, ideally we would have had a drone camera to record some of this, because that was really the only way you could show 530 people. But we do have some video, and I'll include that with this Quick Things email. So we had 530 at 10:30. Over the course of Triduum, from Thursday night to Sunday morning, we had 1,109 people who were gathered here in church for those different liturgies. And then when you add in the live stream, we had over 2,000 people who joined us and celebrated Triduum at some point. So, not that numbers matter, but these days, as we're kind of crawling back out of COVID, we're kind of paying attention to that a little more than we might have. And so it was good to have so many folks engaged, either in person or online, as we celebrated the great 3 days. The links to our Triduum liturgies are included with this email. So if you haven't had an opportunity to participate in them, it would kind of be dated now to participate in Holy Thursday or Good Friday, but I certainly, to celebrate the Easter Vigil or to the Easter morning Mass, that would certainly be appropriate, and those links are included. So I encourage you, if you haven't celebrated Easter yet with us, it's still very appropriate. We're within the octave of Easter, very appropriate still to do that, and I would encourage you to do that. John Schmidt, our executive producer of liturgical productions, also excerpted the homilies from those liturgies, and so links to those are here as well. They'll take you to those posts on Facebook. You don't have to be on Facebook to watch them, so just click the link, and I think that will take you there. Also included with the email is a link to the song. I sang a little bit of it as we started today. This is the Day of New Beginning by Lori True and Brian Red. We'll be singing that several Sundays during the Easter season. I think it just speaks so clearly to where we are at this point in this kind of, again, crawling out of COVID time. I really think the analogy to the early church is fitting. I mentioned this in my homily at the Easter Vigil and Easter morning, that we are like the early Christians. We're kind of venturing out, and we're not sure exactly what to do or how determined to be, but we trust, that our God is making all things new, and that we put our trust in the God who shelters us. And so a link to that song is with this email. Also included with this email is a link to the song Shelter Me, which I referenced in my Easter homily. It was a year ago, March 31st, that three of our music ministers performed that song here in church. Mike Jonkas had just written it a couple days before. We were one of the first to sing that hymn, and we put it out on YouTube. It's been viewed now by almost 50,000 people, or 50,000 views, so probably more than that in terms of numbers of people. But if you haven't seen it or want to experience that again, that is with this email. So it was Sheila Rossmiller, Tim Halkowski, and Christine Lotto who were here in church to introduce us to Shelter Me. So all of those links and things to kind of keep us engaged with our celebration of Easter are with this email. Last Thursday, I was driving around and I was listening to the Catholic channel on satellite radio, and they were airing the Chrism Mass from the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. And the Archbishop was beginning his homily with kind of a litany of different remarks, and it wasn't really having anything to do with the gospel or anything at that point. And he also identified those people he wanted to thank for all that they had done in the past year to help the Archdiocese find its way through the COVID-19 pandemic. And he acknowledged the former archbishops who weren't there, and they gave them a round of applause. And he acknowledged the auxiliary bishops who had been so important to him, and they gave them a round of applause. And he told the priests who were gathered, so give yourselves a round of applause. And then he moved on. I have to think that in the parishes and schools and other institutions of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, there were people beyond archbishops and bishops and priests who were instrumental to the COVID ministry experience. But they weren't mentioned there. I hope the Archbishop was reminded of that at some point in a charitable way, that there were lots of other people to thank. And beyond COVID, I just want to acknowledge folks who helped us celebrate Triduum. It takes almost as much work and almost as many people when there are going to be 120 people gathered for the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Holy Thursday as it does when there are going to be 400 people gathered for the Mass of the Lord's Supper or one of the liturgies on Easter morning. And so it's always dangerous to list people, but I am going to try to do that and hopefully not miss too many. I want to thank our staff who, especially over the past year, but again, as we've come to celebrate Triduum, have really gone beyond what we would want to ask of them, but have given their all to help us celebrate Triduum, this just as they have guided us and encouraged us and assisted our parish over these many months. So gratitude to our staff, and also then the ministers who are instrumental to our being here. We can't do this without without folks who take on these very essential, these are not just adornments or figureheads. These are people who have real things to do. And we wouldn't be able to worship without our welcome ministers, our readers, our servers, our music ministers, who don't just show up. They have to rehearse and kind of learn some new things and be ready to help us pray well. And then our live stream team as well. So lots of folks who are just so crucial to our being able to come and give thanks and praise to God and celebrate the resurrection and proclaim that Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Thanks also to so many parishioners who have been so faithful and continual in their financial support of the parish. That has been a real blessing over this past year and continues to be. There was a note in the worship aid this past week, and I just want to, and that, we don't talk about money at Mass because that really goes against my grain, and I just don't think it's what people come to the Lord's Day liturgy to hear about, but it is a practical reality. And the thing is, in the past few months, some of us have received $2,000 in COVID relief assistance from the federal government. And some folks have already volunteered some of that as additional contribution to the parish. I realize that some of us need that because of we've lost jobs, lost income, whatever. And so what I'm saying does not pertain to you. But if we're in a position such as myself, where we can share some or all of that with the parish, I would really encourage you to think about that possibility. I have dedicated, just for full disclosure, I've dedicated my COVID assistance to our parish contribution to support Catholic relief services, as well as the Building Our Future capital campaign, that kind of a down payment on what I hope to add to that as that goes forward. So if you are able to contribute some or all of your COVID relief funds to something else, here in the parish, I would just encourage you to dedicate that to the Diocesan Annual Appeal, our Building Our Future campaign, or maybe an enhanced contribution to the Lenten Rice Bowl program to support Catholic relief services. If you contribute by check, just make the check out to St. Anne Parish and write, the destination for that in the memo line, or you can make all those contributions online as well at stannwausau.org. This weekend, we will return to our what has been our regular Mass schedule. So we'll have Mass at 4 p.m. Saturday and 9:30 a.m. on Sunday as we continue our celebration of Easter within the octave of Easter. There will be a special surprise at the 9:30 Mass. I'm not going to give that away. Both of those liturgies this weekend will be live streamed, 4 p.m. and 9:30. Going forward, the 4 p.m. will continue to be live streamed, but not the 9:30 as a general rule. The Pastoral Council is meeting this week, and one of the items on the agenda is our Mass schedule going forward. So, of course, we did add a second Sunday morning Mass for Palm Sunday and Easter, and that's a possibility as we get more people are vaccinated and more people are eager and ready to return to church. So that's a decision, that's a topic of conversation for a meeting on Thursday, and we will let you know what comes from that. I know that the next few weeks here in April, we will stay with our current schedule. In terms of Mass outside, obviously we learned on Sunday morning that is a popular option. Even on Palm Sunday, when it was 24 degrees with the wind chill, there were 70 plus people who were gathered to praise God. And so we'll see how the Sunday or how the outdoor Mass option works. When we were doing that in the fall, that was our only morning Mass. And so the work and everything that goes into that was not a huge additional burden. But if we have a Mass inside and then we have Mass outside, that does create a little more work for various folks. But not that it can't happen, it's something we need to give some further consideration to. Also, in terms of this coming weekend's celebration, I believe we will have cinnamon roll sales on Sunday morning. So you can stop by after the 9:30 Mass. If you're at the Mass, you can buy them then, or you can stop by and cinnamon rolls will be on sale in the entranceway. So please to stop by, take advantage of some fresh baked cinnamon rolls to support our youth mission trip this summer. It's been a difficult year for fundraising, but this is the easy fundraiser for us because all we have to do is give a few dollars and we get some great cinnamon rolls to have for breakfast with our coffee that morning. So cinnamon rolls, and then also we're continuing sign up and things like that. There's really, I know that that's attention for some folks, but I don't know how we deal with the limited space and the number of people if we don't do some registration so people know they'll have a place to sit if they join us for Mass. So the sign-up process has been streamlined. It's fast and easy. My mom has signed my mom and dad up. She's done it herself. So I think most of us can handle that, or you can, if you're seeing this, there's no reason for you to call. Someone said, why don't you remind the people that they can call and sign up? But if I'm saying it to you online, you already are online. But if you need to call, you can do that. That's another option for Masses this weekend. A couple other things. Little white books are available. There's a basket of them right inside the entranceway, so you don't have to come in far if you're worried about that. They're also in the little free library outside to guide our prayer through the 50 days of Easter time. And so we work with the gospel from the previous Sunday and kind of take it bit by bit with reflection for each day of the week and some kind of interesting Catholic Christian stuff on the left-hand side of the page for each day as well. And then I want to share a couple pieces of mail. First of all, a note from a parishioner, one of our, I think she's in her 90s. I hope I got that right. It begins, Happy Easter. Sure hope that all is going well at St. Anne. I miss seeing everyone at Mass. Seems like 10 years instead of 2 since we all gathered together. Well, it seems like 2 years instead of 1, actually. I know, who can keep track of it? It does seem like 10 years, but it hasn't even been 2, it's been 1. And we're going into our second year, but hopefully we will not be going far before we are all back together. So thanks for that note, and expressing gratitude as well for keeping folks connected online and things like that. And those notes are very much appreciated. And we've received several of them from parishioners and are grateful for that. And then I want to share a card. Who knew there were Holy Thursday cards, okay? The title of the card is, If the Last Supper Happened Today. One of the disciples is saying to Jesus, who has the plate of bread and the cup, is that gluten-free? I love farm to table. Jesus, can I have white instead of red wine? And then they're taking a selfie and it says, say vegan instead of say cheese. Anyway, happy Easter. And now you know there's a Holy Thursday card. If you have somebody to give that to, you can find it for next year. Let's close with a reading from John's Gospel. The Easter stories are told throughout this octave of Easter at daily Mass, but most of us don't get to hear them, and they're not necessarily told at any other time. We'll have a great Easter gospel story at Mass this coming Sunday for the second Sunday, and we'll have I think the best Easter story of them all on the third Sunday of Easter, but a lot of the others don't get told. I actually think my favorite Easter story is the one we told at the Easter Vigil and on Sunday morning from Mark's Gospel. That would have been the first Easter story that was told. Mark's Gospel was first. And so, and I just think the kind of the inconclusiveness of it, where the women leave, they don't say anything to anyone because they are afraid. I just think there's such power and potential in that story. And also then the awareness that Mark, who began his gospel by saying the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, ends his gospel with basically us left to continue that story of the good news. But I want to read now, to conclude, our kind of a prayerful conclusion to our time from the Gospel of John. Mary Magdalene stayed outside the tomb weeping. And as she wept, she bent over into the tomb and saw 2 angels in white sitting there, one at the head and one at the feet where the body of Jesus had been. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken my Lord, and I don't know where they laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus there, but did not know it was him. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" She thought it was the gardener and said to him, "Sir, if you carried him away, tell me where you laid him, and I will take him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Stop holding on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and tell them, I am going to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and then reported what Jesus had told her. St. Mary Magdalene, pray for us. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed.